You won't believe how one forgotten soldier and a broken dog saved each other's lives. At a run-down auction house near Billings, Montana, Jack Turner, a 42-year-old retired firefighter, locked eyes with a German shepherd lying motionless on the cold concrete. Scarred and skeletal, the dog, listed only as Zero, barely stirred, but Jack saw something familiar in his haunted gaze. "I'll take him," Jack whispered, unknowingly setting off a chain of events that would uncover buried military secrets and challenge everything he thought he knew. But could Jack, fighting his own demons, heal a dog the world had given up on? What happens when a broken man and a shattered dog try to heal each other? Jack Turner had no idea what he was taking on when he brought Zero home that night. The quiet Montana ranch, once his father's pride, had become Jack's refuge, a place where he could escape the nightmares that followed him after years of battling wildfires. But Zero wasn't just any dog. His scars ran deeper than Jack had imagined, and his fear was palpable. The barn Jack prepared for him, filled with fresh straw and water, remained untouched. Zero refused to enter, pacing along the fence line, eyes darting like he was still trapped in some unseen battle. Jack recognized that look. He had seen it in his own reflection too many times. Determined not to force the dog, Jack did something unexpected. He sat outside, under the cold Montana sky, talking softly about his own battles, his losses, and the weight he carried. "I know what it's like, buddy," Jack murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Hour after hour, Jack waited. And just as dawn's first light brushed the horizon, Zero took one cautious step toward him. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. Sometimes the scars you can't see hurt the most, and Jack was about to uncover a truth that would change everything. Days turned into weeks, and while Zero grew more comfortable around Jack, the dog's haunting nightmares never faded. He would wake in the dead of night, panting and trembling, eyes darting as if searching for an unseen enemy. Jack understood, because he had been there too, but something about Zero's behavior didn't add up. This wasn't just trauma. It was deeper. Zero had been trained, conditioned. But for what? One evening, while gently brushing the matted fur along the dog's neck, Jack's fingers brushed against something hard, something foreign beneath the skin. "What the hell?" he muttered, carefully parting the fur. Embedded near the base of Zero's neck was a tiny worn identification tag, military issue. Jack's heart pounded as he read the barely legible text: Handler, Major, James Harrington. The name sent a chill down his spine. Jack had heard whispers of Harrington's controversial training methods when he was still a firefighter working alongside search and rescue teams. "What did they do to you, buddy?" Jack whispered, his voice filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. He knew one thing for certain. Zero's scars weren't just from battle. They were the result of something much darker. As Jack held the worn tag in his hand, a sense of dread settled over him. This was bigger than he ever imagined. And whatever had happened to Zero was only the tip of the iceberg. What if the truth you uncover puts everything, and everyone, you love at risk? Jack Turner's hands trembled as he stared at the worn identification tag. Major James Harrington. The name echoed in his mind, bringing back memories of whispered conversations and hushed warnings during his days working with search and rescue teams. Harrington's methods had always been a topic of heated debate. Rumors of brutal training tactics, pushing military dogs beyond their limits. But nothing Jack had heard compared to the horrors that Zero had clearly endured. Determined to get answers, Jack reached out to an old buddy from his firefighting days, Ben Crawford, who had connections in the military. "You're not going to like what I found, Jack," Ben said after a few days. Harrington was running an off-the-books enhanced training program. These dogs weren't just trained for combat, they were conditioned to obey under extreme duress. And when they broke, they were discarded like trash. Jack's jaw clenched as he glanced at Zero sleeping nearby, his body still twitching from unseen nightmares. "They didn't just break him," Jack muttered softly. "They tried to destroy him." But the worst was yet to come. Ben's voice grew quieter over the phone. "Harrington's people aren't done, Jack. They've been tracking down any of the dogs that made it out, and they'll come for him." A cold chill ran down Jack's spine. He looked at Zero, who had finally begun to trust again. But trust wouldn't be enough. They were running out of time, and danger was already closing in. When danger is closing in, sometimes the only way out is to stand and fight. Jack Turner had faced wildfires that roared like freight trains and seen men crumble under pressure. But this was different. The threat was no longer a distant memory. It was here, closing in fast. Zero was no ordinary dog. Jack knew that now, and the men who had broken him weren't going to let him walk away. "They're coming, Jack," Ben's warning echoed in his mind as he sat on the porch, the cool Montana wind brushing against his face. Zero lay beside him, eyes scanning the tree line, ears twitching at the slightest sound. Jack had seen that look before. Zero was back in combat mode, sensing a threat that was getting closer by the minute. "Not this time, buddy," Jack murmured, running a hand gently along Zero's back. "They don't get to hurt you again." Jack wasn't just waiting anymore. He was preparing. Over the next few days, he fortified the ranch, installed cameras, reinforced the barn, and set up a perimeter that would make any intruder think twice. But this wasn't just about defense. Jack knew Harrington's men wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. "We're not running," Jack told Zero one night as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Not this time." But Jack wasn't alone. Word had spread through the veteran community, and soon familiar faces began arriving at the ranch. Ben, Cooper, and a dozen others. Men who had served, men who understood the stakes, stood by Jack's side. These weren't just friends. They were brothers. "We've got your back, Jack," Cooper said, his voice steady. "We're not letting them take him." As night fell, Jack and Zero stood together, watching the darkness settle over the ranch. But this time, they weren't afraid. This time, they were ready. When the past comes knocking, you don't run. You answer. The night was deathly quiet, too quiet. Jack Turner stood on his porch, his eyes scanning the tree line where shadows danced under the moonlight. Beside him, Zero was a statue, ears pricked, muscles coiled, ready. Jack had felt this tension before, back in his firefighting days when the air got too still before the flames roared to life. But this wasn't a wildfire. It was something far more dangerous, and it was coming straight for them. "Stay sharp, buddy," Jack murmured, his hand brushing lightly over Zero's head. "They'll be here soon." As if on cue, the distant crunch of tires on gravel echoed through the darkness. They were here. Jack's pulse quickened, but his mind was calm. Ben, Cooper, and the others were in position, veterans who knew exactly what was at stake. They weren't just protecting a dog, they were standing guard for a brother in arms. Jack took a steadying breath. his grip tightening around his rifle. But it wasn't just the men Jack was counting on tonight. Zero had come a long way since that night at the auction house. The broken, terrified dog was gone, replaced by a soldier who had found his strength again. "We're ready," Jack whispered. Zero's ears twitched in response, his gaze locked on the approaching threat. The fight wasn't just for survival anymore. It was for justice. And tonight, Jack and Zero were ready to face whatever came their way. Heroes aren't born, they're forged in fire, and sometimes the most unexpected heroes have 4 legs. The battle had been swift but intense. Jack Turner stood by the barn, his breathing heavy, eyes scanning the aftermath of the chaos that had unfolded on his land. Zero stood beside him, his coat matted with dirt, but his posture was proud, ears alert, eyes scanning for any lingering threats. They had done it. Harrington's men had retreated, but Jack knew this was far from over. "You did good, buddy," Jack murmured, kneeling beside Zero and brushing the dust from his fur. For the first time since that fateful night at the auction house, there was no fear in Zero's eyes, only a quiet confidence. "You're not just surviving anymore," Jack whispered, his voice filled with pride. "You're fighting back." But the real battle was just beginning. Word of the Harringtons' illegal program had spread, and with it came a wave of outrage. Military officials, politicians, and the media demanded answers. Jack and Zero became the face of that fight, a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog. Jack's ranch, once a place of solitude, had become a beacon of hope. Veterans and retired military dogs from across the country began arriving, seeking healing and a second chance. And at the center of it all stood Zero, a once broken soldier who had found his purpose again. "We're not done yet," Jack said softly, his hand resting on Zero's head. "We've got more lives to save." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the Montana sky, Jack and Zero stood together, not as victims, but as warriors. Their journey was far from over, and the best was yet to come. True healing doesn't come from forgetting the past. It comes from facing it with courage and compassion. Jack and Zero's journey teaches us that even the most broken souls can find purpose again when given patience, understanding, and a second chance. Life's deepest wounds, whether in people or animals, don't heal overnight. It takes time, trust, and a willingness to confront the pain. Their story reminds us that by helping others, especially those who can't speak for themselves, we often find the strength to heal our own hearts. In giving others a chance to heal, we rediscover hope and meaning in our own lives.